Okay, welcome again to the class. This is Agricultural Engineering 153, Forest Products Engineering. We're on the second part of the discussion of utilization of wood. Last time we were talking about the parameters to identify the different board types of plain sawn, reft sawn, and quarter sawn. And there were four that we were discussing about. The last one was tangential face pattern. We had also the yield and the stability and other properties on expansion. So we are now going to discuss on the utilization proper. And before we can have a log, first and foremost, we should have a tree that is standing. And before you can cut down a tree, I listed here three questions that are of importance prior to cutting down a tree. And the first one would be, how many trees do you need? And number two would be, how many boards does one tree hold? Okay, how many board feet will one tree make? Okay, and then lastly, have the legal documents and requirements for cutting been complied with? Why these questions? Because those are well, we're not yet going to discuss them per se. We're not going to discuss the first two because I'm going to give it as a quiz. You have there on the screen a quiz item, but the legal documents and requirements, we're not going to tackle it now because we're going to have it on the discussion on economics and legal issues. So for the questions 1 and 2, but particularly on the second question, I want you to answer the quiz given on the screen. So it's for you to identify a practical mensuration technique of gauging the height and volume of a tree. By practical mensuration, I mean the use of non-traditional measuring techniques, measuring tools. Okay, so you won't be using measuring tools. One here that I've already listed is the use of your thumb and another person. So you can expound on that if you want to answer that, okay? But how will you be able to use your thumb and another person to measure or identify by eyeball estimate, for example, the height and the volume of the tree so that you'll be able to know the quantity of boards that you can make out of that tree? If you know other, or if you can research for other means of doing that, so that would be good. So I'll be putting up a submission bin in our Google Classroom, and you have to submit when it is due. Okay, so the tree is first standing. What are you going to do now when you have a tree? So first and foremost, I want to note that this is a very sensitive step in the production process of lumber or wood. And why is that? Because, well, imagine you have a tree like the one in the first slide a while ago. It's a giant sequoia. How many people were there? I don't know, but I don't think one person can. How many person will be needed to fill up the circumference of that giant sequoia tree? Well, probably 100. But so yeah, so why is it a sensitive step? Or why is it a sensitive process? Because you are involving a product that is very big. Okay, it's a an organism. So it's a material that's of enormous size and weight. So what could happen is that, well, when you have something that's big, okay, for example, we often have problems that are so much bigger than us, and oftentimes we feel so out of control of the situation. So the same here, the tree of an enormous size and weight can be a big problem for a person like us. So what could happen when you're already cutting the tree might not fall in the right direction. That happens, and um, well, I'm not going to. Well, later you'll see why it's a problem. So next, the logging process itself requires skill by virtue of practice and experience. So you have to learn how to do it, because there's just not one way, just any way to do it. There's a specific way to do it, and we're going to go through it later. So what happens if you don't know how to do it? An inexperienced person will lead to wrong decisions and miscalculations, and both of these situations will lead to or can cause accidents when felling a tree. Now, those things are what we want to avoid. We want to approach this scientifically. We want to approach this in a better manner than just, well, uh, what do you call this? A, a by chance. Okay, so we don't want that happening. So we want to do it the correct way, because it is an inherently dangerous and life-threatening activity. We want to have techniques, okay, and when you are performing it, the right equipment also. So what are the equipment and special techniques that we need? So first and foremost, okay, on the screen you can see now those equipment. Okay, what is that? It's a chainsaw. Next is an axe. Letter C is a 2-man crosscut saw for tree felling. Anyway, so what do you need? So do you need all of this? Okay, no, you don't. You can just choose between A or B and C. So you need a chainsaw, letter A, or the combination of an axe and a felling saw. Here on the screen is a crosscut saw. Okay, what kind? So any chainsaw will do. But the axe, yeah, any axe or regular axe will do. But so here on the felling saw, you can just like an example, but you can also use a 1-man crosscut saw if you're just one person. Well, if you have a 2-man crosscut saw, you will need to operate the tool. Now, this crosscut saw will have different kinds of teeth. Okay, and that one a while ago is that is a standard peg tooth. You can have other types: the plain tooth, the champion tooth, the M tooth, lance tooth, others. Okay, but we're not going to go through this. So each of these tooth pattern has its own purpose for tree felling, and I'm going to refer you to a book. Okay, it's already up in our online repository. You can look at it there. Although I'll be putting the link to the source source location of this uh, electronic book that I referred to when talking about this crosscut saws. This is entitled "Saws That Sing." It's just the important thing here is that the what do you call this? The maintenance of the crosscut saw. And likewise, a reminder that we should be keeping our tools in good condition. For the chainsaw, the replacement of the chain, and for the axe and the felling saw, with the maintenance of the sharpness of the teeth or the blade. Okay, so you have to file it regularly to keep the tools sharp. This is a high friction activity. The cutting of a tree is a high friction activity and would involve the dulling of the bladed parts of the tools. Okay, now after the equipment, we have now the technique to cut a tree. And okay, so you have to look at the slides. Okay, so you have here a standing tree. And the first important thing that you should be able to identify when you are in such a situation is to look for the fall side. On which side are you going to have the tree fall? Okay, once you have that, you can now make the first cut on the tree. An important note here is that before doing this, okay, and before also identifying the fall side, or while you have identified the fall side, you should be able to establish also an escape plan. Okay, what is this escape plan? What if by any chance the tree falls on the wrong direction? Where are you going to go? Okay, so while you're standing here, where should you be going? And when you're standing over there, where should you be going? So that kind of thought at least would lead you to a safer operation of tree felling. So going back, once you have the fall side, your escape plan, and then you have now done the first cut. Okay, that first cut should be 30 to 60 centimeters, or 1 foot to 2 feet above the ground, downward sloping in orientation. Now, letter B here. So you make another cut, but this time going up towards that same location of your first cut, so that you make a V notch on the trunk of the tree. Now you have to continue doing that so that you go towards the you're halfway, or at least 2/3 through the trunk of the tree, and it should be an equilateral triangle. Okay, so once you have that, you can see here a representation. You should be able to see a web configuration on the trunk, looking towards the trunk. Okay. Now, once done, you can already do the felling. Okay, by now using if you were using a chainsaw, you could just continuously cut again, but this time on the other side of the tree. Yeah, so this time it should be, when you're cutting, it should be just a little above the center of the notch, of the V notch. So if you were axing your way on the fall side, then when you are now going to fell the tree, you should be using the crosscut saw. So that way you'll be able to cut the tree safely. So these are the steps, just a few steps that you should be using or doing when cutting a tree. Now, we were talking of the manual way to do things. Again, we are engineers, and so we just don't want to do it manually because we want to simplify our lives. So here's a here's a mechanical way of harvesting trees. So you have here on the screen, you have a feller buncher. Can be loaded in any kind of truck machine. So it's just an implement, very much like the implements used for land preparation on different kinds of land activities, or yeah, for rice operations. So you have here a John Deere 33G compact track loader, and the feller buncher was just attached, or the implement was just attached via hydraulics. Okay, I'm not sure if it's power takeoff. I have to see, but it's controlled via hydraulics. So how does it operate? You can see from the specs there that it has a cutting disc, okay, at 1800 RPM. The disc can cut up to 16 inches. Okay. Now the arms, it allows for the multiple collection, okay, of the logs. The problem with this one is you won't be able to just cut any tree. You're just limited to for smaller kinds of trees, or probably for plantation types. Okay. But it simplifies very much the cutting operation that we were talking about a while ago. See how it just cuts through using the disc. There are also other types. For example, there are shearing type cutting modes for this kind, but this one has a cutting disc attached to it. Okay. Now, once you have the lumber, what are you going to do? And we're going to discuss that in the next part of the discussion. Thank you, and I'll see you there.